Anyway, my talk actually is going to deal with the idea of the changing media scene and its impact on the youth. And of course, the impact is both positive and negative. We live in a remarkable time where our ability to communicate, share, collaborate, and act has been expanded beyond the limits of traditional institutions, distributors, and gatekeepers. With social media and blogging, everyone has a voice. And as a result, a whole new crop of influencers have popped up. In a recent report, it was shown that the internet now is the third most popular news medium, trailing behind local and national television. Local television, national television, and the internet are the three most popular news media, ahead of newspapers and radio broadcasts. This should make my colleague Ramadan Rawashdi happy to know that local television is still the most important news medium. Almost 2/3 of people get the news from both online and offline sources, according to the report. The internet then has become another important medium for news consumption. It has also changed how people interact with the news. This is important because in traditional media, you are just a recipient of the message. But with the internet, you're no longer a passive recipient, but you are an active participant. The report found that 33% of cell phone owners now access news from their phone, and that 28% of internet users have customized their homepage to show news topics of their interest. So they are creating their own news medium, in other words. And in our part of the world, of course, the Egypt uprising in February 2011 was referred to as the Facebook revolution. With the recent exploding development of social media, blogging, tweets, YouTube, and other video sharing sites, combined with increased connectivity, governments can no longer hide behind censorship nor rule by effective manipulation of the truth. This has become something of the past. Citizens all over the world are increasingly inspired to speak up against human rights abuses, and mainstream media now turns to ordinary people to cover stories they have limited access to. In other words, as Dr. Barghouti has said, even ordinary citizens have become journalists in a way. Anyone who has a mobile phone is in one way or another a journalist. This has definitely created a whole new media scene. But of course, there are pros and cons for that. There are risks when everybody takes part in the professional medium or professional scene of media. There is, to start with, an ethical dilemma. How do you deal with the fact that the first to break the news story outrules ethical guidelines sometimes, especially in countries which lack tradition of independent journalism? The negative example for that is the mobile footage of the execution of Saddam Hussein. Ordinary citizen took these photos and uploaded them and published them right away. So there is an ethical dilemma here. There are no newsrooms for ordinary people. There is no editor to spot inaccuracies, and false material, as in the normal procedure of news broadcasting. Many news agencies, news websites take a risk when trusting amateur reporters. So it is not all positive. There are some negative sides to that. Ethical criteria for media should always be upheld. So it is positive in a lot of ways, but it has also some negative connotations. With the increased need of fast access to the latest news, accompanied by the technology to make it possible, many news agencies, many news outlets have resorted to ordinary citizens. We have witnessed that in Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya in our part of the world, where the only news that you get out of Syria or Egypt at one point, Libya, were coming from ordinary people. There was no other way. But again, there were risks and there were mistakes. Many of these news stations later had to apologize that the footage they had published was not actually, in fact, accurate. But I have to mention here or stress that these recent events in the Arab world have had a positive impact on regional media as a whole. So the impact was, generally speaking, positive. Governments could no longer continue in the same old ways of dealing with the media, so they had to advance their media standards, whether they wanted that or not. Since the 1990s, forces of globalization, namely satellite television and the internet, effectively changed the media landscape in the whole world, allowing for circumventing authoritarian censorship. Censorship has been made obsolete. It is something of the past, although many of us, especially in this part of the world, remember or vaguely remember the time when censorship was the common practice. I remember that myself, sometimes somewhat vaguely, at the newspaper where I worked at for some time, at Dustur, in the 60s, when I used to go with my late father as a young man. I remember we had an official over there called the censor, Al-Raqib, with a huge stamp, and no page was sent to the printing press without being stamped as censored, sealed, approved, something like that. So there was censorship in our parts of the world. Of course, nowadays, even if governments wanted to censor, they just cannot. Okay, I have to cut down. Okay. One important feature of the internet is that it is a truly democratic space. The internet is a truly democratic space in which the well-informed expert, the amateur, and those with malicious intent have equal access to create and publish content. This is very important to remember. Not everything that you see on the internet is accurate, is good for you, is useful, because it is a totally democratic space where anyone can post anything, regardless of their intentions. This is important to bear in mind, because we know that the printed word has certain magic. And people sometimes, especially because they are used to the old media, when they see something in print, they believe it, they feel that it is accurate, they feel that it's always somebody is responsible for it. But again, this can be very elusive. This can be very misleading. We have to remember that, and we have to take that into consideration. Now, there is a challenge for many countries in the world, especially in developed countries, and that is to make the internet available and accessible to everyone, in spite of the fact that internet penetration is gaining speed all over the world, including in our part of the world. By the way, recent study showed that 70% of the Arabic content on the internet is produced here in Jordan. 70% of the Arabic content on the internet is produced here in Jordan. Unfortunately, the Arabic content on the internet as a whole is only 1%. This is a tragic fact, a very disappointing fact, but it is a fact nonetheless. But this fact should not make us just stand hopelessly by. We should do something about it, and we should try to increase this Arabic content, because I believe that illiteracy nowadays is not knowing the letters, but actually not being able to communicate with the world through the new technologies, mainly the internet. So the challenge for many developing countries is to make the internet available and accessible to everyone. Governments should work towards creating information societies where everyone has access to the internet. There is something we can learn from the Finnish government, the government of Finland, who has made the broadband a legal right. A legal right. Citizens have a right to have a broadband. A recent conference in Stockholm, Sweden, also talked about the freedom of the internet, and it used the term that the freedom of the internet is just like air and water. It's like air and water. People have a right to access to the internet. So this is becoming one of the new universal rights, if you may wish to say. And we in the Arab world, in the third world, in the developing world, have to catch up with that. Otherwise, we will pay a heavy price for lagging behind. Now, I've been talking mainly about the positive aspects of the new communications scene. But there are, unfortunately, some negative aspects as well that I have to mention in order to give you a balanced view of the situation. Recent events raises concerns about media's effects on aggression, even substance use, disordered eating, and even academic difficulties, especially among young people. The media offers them new horizons, gives them a voice, but again has some negative effects on them. Just as every cigarette one smokes increases a little bit the likelihood of a lung tumor someday, every violent show one watches increases just a little bit the likelihood of behaving more aggressively in some situation. Three minutes, okay. Children and adolescents spend more time with media than they do in other activity. Now, there is a new term that is circulating among media analysts these days, which is that media has turned people into living together separately. Living together separately. We have become living together separately because everyone is so obsessed with his own media tool that he is physically in one place with other people, but in fact he is all alone. So this has definitely a negative impact on people, especially young people. Again, risk of overweight increases by 31%, and the likelihood of smoking doubles the more there is television viewing. Unfortunately, the internet is also used as a mechanism for bullying and harassing. Some scientists also worry about the impact of all of this new technology on the developing adolescent brain. Media affect youth not only by displacing time they spend doing homework or sleeping, but also by influencing beliefs and behaviors. Children younger than 8 years who are not yet able to comprehend persuasive intent will be more vulnerable to advertising. And unfortunately, some advertisers unethically resort to that, trying to manipulate children's buying habits by doing so. The chances of violence and aggression also rise the more there is more media content. I will close by saying that this does not mean that we should give up. There's a new term also that is coming up these days, which is media education. This has to be the answer. Media education. We should educate young people how to deal with the media, how to deal with it responsibly, and how to make the best use of it. Thank you very much.
شكرا لمعالي الدكتور نبيل الشريف. Thank you, Dr. Nabil Sharif. Before question, I have to announce that our next session will be about knowledge age. The moderator will be Mustafa Nasruddin, Rotary Club of Amman Litra. Speakers, Sabri Saidam from Palestine, Zaid Shbirat, Regional Director, Marketing and Operations, Microsoft North Africa, Eastern Mediterranean and Dagestan from Jordan, and Wa'il Fakhrani, Regional Manager, Google, Egypt and North Africa. The question, please, before ask question, only you have to mention the name, your name and the country, and who the question directed to. Please, we will have many questions from, yes please.
My name is Phil Silvers from Arizona, USA, and my question is for both of the speakers, whichever would like to respond. Given the points that our speakers have made today about the opportunities provided by the internet and the media, what is the and given the fact that the United States has an inordinate and problematic influence over the Middle East, what is the possibility of Arab peoples making a concerted message to the uninformed and misinformed peoples of North America and the Americas about the realities of the Middle East? What's the possibility of a concerted effort? Whoever would like to respond.
But I asked you to mention the name and the country.
Of course, in the past we used to say that Arab governments are responsible for making the Arab point of view accessible to all people all over the world. But this has never happened. Now, with the internet, as you said, I think it has become the responsibility of everyone, of political activists, political parties, media, professionals. It is no longer the monopoly of governments to do that. And vice versa, it is also the responsibility probably of people in the West to spread the message, to to share ideas. There was a monopoly on news media in the US and in other European countries. This monopoly is breaking up, whether they like it or not. People have more access to information these days, and they can understand what's going on in the world. I think it is the responsibility of the individual. It is the responsibility of Arabs, definitely, of Arab people as a whole. And I think, generally speaking, we are headed in the right direction. It is going to take some time, but we can shorten that time by being more involved in the issue. Thank you.
I can add to that a couple of thoughts. First of all, I think I agree that it is a responsibility, especially of young people today. They're the ones who are capable of breaking through and bringing in information, especially in universities. And after all, if you influence the younger generation, you're influencing the whole society. But the problem remains, I have had myself experience with that. The problem is, how can you neutralize or balance the effect of mass media? Mass media has an amazing effect in a country like the United States. And I'm not speaking only about TV channels. I'm speaking about also like Hollywood production, etc., etc. I think one good film produced by Hollywood, for instance, about the Palestinian cause, will create a tremendous effect if it can be done, but it cannot. So I have had many experiences, and it was amazing. For instance, we were on many very important shows like 60 Minutes, etc., etc. But I was amazed to understand that the show that made the biggest difference was a comedy show, which is the Daily Show. That was the specific show that had the biggest impact when we appeared to it, speaking about Palestine. So I think segmentation here and identifying the best tools is very, very crucial. Besides, of course, having systematic lobbying, because we are encountering, in the case of the United States, a very powerful lobby, pro-Israeli lobby, you know that well. And the Arabs have been really a failure in terms of encountering it. I'll give you just one figure. The number of lobbyists in the Congress for AIPAC, the pro-Israeli lobby, is 164. The number of Arab lobbyists at the Congress for all the Arab countries is 6. 6 versus 164. So that gives you an idea about how much still needs to be done.
My name is Imad Moyed. I'm from Bahrain. I'd like to, sorry, everyone's staring to look at me. I'm here. He's staring too. I think the point made by the gentleman from the United States is a very valid one, and thank you, sir, for raising it. I think there is a need to try to change the American perspective to explain the point of view of the Arab world and what he termed as the North American countries. My point is that Rotary has a role to play in this situation. I think the fact that Rotary is an international movement with people moving like himself being here and like many governments who have traveled to the United States. I had the misfortune of being the governor of this district in the year 2001-2002, which was the year of the 9/11 incidents. And I had to communicate with many of my American counterparts at the time to try to give them an Arab point of view, to try to counter the poisonous negativism that was being sprayed, sprayed all over the United States.
Your question? Question, speech, please.
I realize you don't want to speak. I'm commenting on the point made. If you don't want me to comment, thank you very much.
لا 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 لو سمحت هون الميكروفون هون.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Magid Badawi, Nuzha Club Alexandria Egypt. The question is to Dr. Sharif, Nabil Sharif. You talked about the negative aspects of the internet. In your opinion, are they enough of them to justify our governments in the region to so-called regulate it or supervise it? And in your opinion, is it happening or it will ever happen? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is a very important question.